Good morning, kindergartners. This is Miss Broyhill. We are going to be creating a painting today that is going to be of a fish, and it's going to be of a fish surrounded by things that you would see a fish in the ocean surrounded with. So maybe some seaweed, other fish, jellyfish, seashells, seahorses, crabs, grass, and, well, not grass, but seaweed, and maybe some sand at the bottom of the ocean. So the way we're going to do this, we will be using crayons first and then watercolor next. If you don't have watercolor, and I'm speaking to my remote students right now, if you don't have any watercolor, that's fine. You can just do the details with crayons is fine, or whatever art supplies you have. So this is going to sound kind of strange, but we're going to be using your shoe to create the shape of our fish. And the reason that I want to use you to use your shoe is that if I show you how to draw a fish, you might not make it quite big enough for it to show up good. And we want the fish to be the main part of our art today, so that's the main subject matter that we are painting. So that's why we're using your shoe. I'm going to be using my shoe, which is a little bit too big for my paper, but I'm going to use it anyway. So I'm going to show you how you can create a fish made from a shoe. So I call this lesson Shoe Fish. So first thing I'm going to do is take my shoe, put it on the center of my paper. See, mine's really too big for this, but that's okay. That's all I've got. I don't have any little shoes. Let's zoom out a little bit. So what you will do with your crayon, whatever color you want. Well, first of all, any color. If you're going to paint, any color but blue is fine. So I'm going to use green. Hold it down tight in the center. Hold up your crayon straight and trace around your shoe. And don't borrow anybody else's shoe. Use your shoe. Trace around it. And there's the shape so far. I'm going to go back over my lines. Like I said, my shoe is a little too big for this, but it will work. We want it to be big and be the emphasis of it. So we're only viewing our fish from the side. So I'm going to put one side. So you're only going to see one eye. If you want some big smoochy lips on your fish, there you go. 2 little bumpy lines. If you don't want big smoochy lips, that's fine too. On the side, we've studied the bumpy lines before. To make it look like scales, put in your bumpy lines. Now, if you want to put in different kinds of lines besides the bumpy lines, that's fine too. Okay. On the top fin, it's like a triangle. 1, 2, 3. So do you see how that's like a triangle? I usually put straight lines in that fin. Then there's a fin on the bottom. It's a triangle shape too. His tail fin is kind of like the bottom of a triangle or a trapezoid, if you've studied trapezoids yet, because that would be that part right there, except it would be straight. So there's my tail fin, and you can draw this any color that you want but blue. So next, we need some sand on the bottom of the ocean floor, or pebbles, or rocks. So I'm going to draw some ovals to represent rocks on the bottom of the ocean. I need some seaweed. So wavy lines work really good for seaweed. If my shoe were smaller, you could bring the seaweed all the way to the top. But since I have a big shoe, I can't do that. But your shoe will fit just fine. So there's some seaweed. If you want to color your fish in between the lines of your scales, that's fine. Oh, we need some gills, because fish breathe with gills. You can color in any part of this that you want to, the whole fish, if you want to. But he needs a little friend. So I'm going to draw a sea snail. So Well, it's like a spiral. If you have drawn a spiral before, it's kind of like a cinnamon roll. Then there's his head, and then there's his tail. And I'm not sure what those little things are called. They kind of look like antennas, but I'm not sure what they're called. And that's okay. So he's got a little friend. If you wanted to draw another little fish up here, or a starfish, or a jellyfish, or a hermit crab, ever how many friends you want your fish to have in the ocean, that's perfectly fine. And the last thing I want to show you, this is what's kind of cool about this lesson. I have a white crayon here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to color inside some spots white to go with my watercolor. Now, if you don't have watercolor, you just color in the blue water around your fish with the crayons, if that's what you've got. Crayons are better. If you use markers, they're a little too dark. I'm going to put some bubbles up here in the water and some wavy lines, because when the fish is moving through the water, it gives a little wave. Like I said, I'm not going to color in my fish, but you can. I would do so because it would show up so much better. But I'm not going to for time's sake, but you do need to color in your fish. After you color in your fish and you put some white bubbles and some white lines somewhere on your fish, that's when you're going to have your, if you have watercolor, those remote learners at home, if you have watercolor, that's fine. Here at school, we have got watercolor ready. This is your watercolor tray. And then we've got all these colors. We're going to stick with blue. Now, these watercolors are solid right now. That means they're hard. We have to take water and turn the watercolor into paint because it's not liquid right now. And water is liquid, so we've got to take our brush, and I call it drip it and dip it is what I call it. So I get some water and drip it into the blue with my brush. I always wipe off extra water on the edge of the bowl. I never ever squeeze the water out. You don't need to take your hand and squeeze the water out of your brush. You always wipe it on the side. And I don't tap my brush on the side because it just slings dots of water everywhere and it's just not really necessary. Just wipe it on the side. I know you guys want to tap it, but try not to do that. Right now with the pandemic going on, I know we'll have dividers between each of us and you won't be slinging water on your neighbor's artwork, but in a normal situation, if you were sitting beside your shoulder buddy, is what I always called you, you would, if you tap it like that to get rid of water, it would throw water on your neighbor's artwork and they probably wouldn't like that too good. So just remember, rub it on the side. That's how you get rid of some water. All right, it's been soaking for just a little bit, so I've dripped it. Now I'm going to dip it. Now when I'm painting, I want to use the tip of my brush. You're not mashing down hard to paint. You are using the end of your brush. Oh, these are your bristles. So dip it real easy. Don't take your brush and dig into the ovals here. You don't need to dig out the paint. You have to turn it into paint. Okay, so it's pretty jiggly and liquidy, which is what I want. And every time I use paint, when I use it up, I need to add more water to it because it's not going to stay liquid the whole time. So what you will do is take and, like you're rubbing, if you have a pet, you know how you rub a pet down its back? You rub it. That's how you paint. You paint the same way. You don't scramble eggs. If you've ever seen anybody scrambling eggs, that's not how you paint. And see, I'm using the tip of my brush. I'm painting right on top of my crayons. And see, my crayons still show up. Now, if I used blue, it might not show up too good. So I'm dripping, dipping, not digging. You're painting the water around your fish. And you can paint right on top of your fish. And since you will have more color on your fish than me, it will still show up. Right there is the white of his eye. So the white is really showing up. Now let's say your paint starts getting gooey in your tray, in your ovals. If it starts getting gooey, it needs some more water added to it because it will get really super dark if it's gooey. And watercolor is supposed to be light. And you take any puddles that might be on your paint, on your paper I mean, take any of those puddles and push them to a new place on your paper that needs the blue, because we're painting the water around the fish and on the fish. So if it ends up getting, if you put your brush on your paper and it's really super dark, don't dip back into the paint, just dip back into the water and just add to it on your paper. That way it's not super dark. And when it turns the color that you want to paint it, do not keep on painting the same spot over and over. You will get a hole in your paper. And I don't know about you remote learners, but if you don't have thick paper to paint on, it wouldn't take long at all for that paper to get a hole in it, or it gets these little fuzzy things on it, and that means the paper is breaking down. But if you have a canvas at home, guys, use a canvas. And you might not need watercolor then. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, the Dollar Tree does have acrylic paint in a pretty good size tube if you wanted to buy some paint. That's a good place. It's a tube. It's about 2 ounces of acrylic paint. If you need to go buy some and you're on a budget, which an art teacher is always on a budget. So if you wanted some acrylic paint, you could have painted around it if you didn't get a watercolor set. I think the Dollar Tree might have watercolor sets. I'm not sure. The Dollar General probably does. I know Walmart probably does. They're not too expensive, but we always want to take care of them and use lots of water. So, finished painting my shoe fish. Let's zoom out a little bit. So wherever I had the white crayon, the white showed up because it resists, the paint resists the wax crayon. So it makes it kind of like magic in a way. So that's my shoe fish. I hope you have fun with it. Make sure you get your name. I forgot to tell you this, so that's my fault. Make sure you get your name on your paper. And a K stands for kindergarten. And then whatever your teacher's name is, I'm not sure which class I'll be teaching Friday, but let's just say Miss Shepherd. So if you're in Miss Shepherd's class, it would be KS, because S stands for Shepherd. And then write your name. Now, if you're in Miss Lovett's class or Miss Davis's class, whatever your teacher's name starts with, that's what you put on there. That way, if you lose your artwork sometime, if anybody in the whole school finds it, they'll know that it belongs to a kindergarten class with a teacher's name starts with an S, so that's got to be Miss Shepherd if that's your teacher. If you're a remote learner, you just go ahead and put your name on it. If you want to send me your artwork, that's fine. If you want to keep it until you come back, that's fine. If you just want to keep it forever, that's fine. So that's the shoe fish. And if you are in my class right now, if you would put your artwork on a drying rack, and you can get Mrs. Rash to show you where the drying rack is, and then we will get your art back to you, because it might be too wet for you to take it back to class with you, but I will get it to you as long as you put the letter of your teacher's name on the back with your name. We'll know whose artwork it is. So that's your shoe fish. That's your art lesson for this week. I hope you have fun with it. I hope you have some watercolor and some crayons that you can do this with. But if not, crayons are fine too. Y'all have a good day. Thanks.